and welcome to another episode of Application Development Today. My name is Don Jackson. I'm your host. I'm also a chief technologist here at OpenText. And I'm super excited today. We're going to be talking about the future of test automation. And with me today, I've got Mr. Eyal Cohen, who is one of the people that I've been talking with. I've in my journey for I don't know, probably 10 to 15 years now. We've
Yes.
we've been cohorts in this evil empire building of test automation. So, Eyal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Don. First, thank you for having me over here. My name is Eyal Cohen. I'm leading the product group inside OpenText for functional testing, which include the automations that we have and the future of our direction as part of value access.
Awesome. So thanks again for coming. So the topic today is the future of test automation. Where do we see things going, right? This is not a product demonstration. This is not a product roadmap. This is what are we seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah.
Where do we think the market is going to go? These are, as I said in one of the previous episodes, maybe we should, label ourselves as prognosticators.
Yeah.
Right. We want to figure out things in the future. So I think, though, in order to say where are we going, I think we have to establish where are we today, right? What are the challenges that we see today? What are the cutting edge things that we see today? So Eyal, where are we today from a test automation perspective?
So before talking about where we're today, let's first talk about what challenges we're seeing today. And we're saying today, I'm talking about today in the last couple of years. The challenges are almost the same, although they're evolving with time. So I think the first one is the fact that we are in a agile DevOps world, which means fast delivery. We're being expected to deliver. We as an organization are expected to deliver very, very fast. If it's every week, every couple of weeks, every day, sometimes depends on the organization. And the quality cannot be left behind. And we, as quality managers in the organization, need to make sure that the quality is always as expected. And the only way to do it is with automation. So this is one challenge that we need to better understand how we are working faster without compromising our quality while working in the product. The second thing that we're seeing a lot is the endless environments that we have. So I remember I didn't mention it, but I've been in this industry for more than 20 years. So when we began, we tested only on Windows. It was back then Windows, burst to say 98, but never mind. And we had one browser to test, so the environment was very, very simple. And it was easy. Nowadays, the amount of environment, browsers, operation systems we need to support is enormous. And this is without even tackling the mobile stuff that we have. So talking about different devices, different permutation, operation system, the amount of testing that need to be done all the time, every time, to make sure that application work is enormous. And we know that we cannot test everything on all environment.
Right.
So we need to be very, very smart of what we decide to test and where are we taking the risk and not validating a specific scenario or specific environment. The third big challenge that we are seeing today is around, again, it's not new, but around if you have a lot of automation, you're spending at least 50% of your time maintaining existing assets. And I'm saying at least, and very generous over here, it can be much, much more than that. Every small change of your development organization, even if it's in the backend and not front-end change, can affect your automation. So if you're running every night thousands of tests, you need to first validate the quality and the status of the test. And in a lot of cases, you need to go back and modify to test in order to make sure that they are still up to date.
Yeah, when I was, one of the times when I was leading a testing or a test automation team, we had a 3-week release cadence. So you talk about acceleration and then maintenance, right? So 3-week release cadence, we would spend the first week and a half when we got the new build, maintaining. So
Yeah.
half of our time was just maintaining because some changes that came, if it weren't for all those pesky changes, I could get a lot done, right? So we make jokes like that all the time. If we just stopped developing stuff, I could be so much more productive,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works, right?
exactly.
You've got this pace of change, you've got the explosion of environments. We talked about in a previous episode when we were talking with Mr. Trimper about what type of testing we should do. We talked about the applications getting developed for phablets, right? Phone tablets, right? Where the real estate's really big, and then the user experience changes dramatically because all of the users instead of using the application on an iPad, they're using it on an iPhone, and not only an iPhone but an iPhone 7, right? Or they're using it on a mini, right, which is purposely a smaller device. And how does that change? So you're absolutely right? The proliferation of different environments that you have to deal with. I too started back in the 90s as well. I have to tell you, I miss my Windrunner days, right? Of doing my testing on Windrunner. But you're absolutely right. I remember testing. We only tested on one flavor of Windows, and we only had one browser. We didn't. We never tested on Netscape Navigator. We only tested it on IE, and that was fine. Well,
Yeah.
now, do I test it on Chrome or Safari, or do I test on Firefox, or all these other ones? Which
And,
version do I do? Which
and especially in today, when organizations are adapting the BYOD across the board with phone, with
Yeah,
machines, and everything, there's no IT anymore to say. Again, there is, but the flexibility over here is much higher, and everyone can say, yes, I'm using my own Mac, and I'm using Safari, and I don't care if IT wants me to use Windows. This is what I'm using, and
yeah,
the application needs to work. And this
yeah,
is a very challenging approach. And I think before moving forward, I think the last point over here, we're seeing, especially with the move to Agile and DevOps, a lot of the specifically test automation are being done by developers, which is great. I encourage them. We need to, what we are calling shift left, but um developers are not, let's call it tester by heart,
right,
which means that if they need to create a unit test to cover their class, this is great, but they don't have the flow and the end-to-end flow and understanding. So how do you measure quality? How do you make sure that the quality is working across the solution, across the multi-layer solution you probably have? And this is something very difficult because I've seen organizations said, we don't need QA or testers, our developers are doing that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because they don't know quality. QA, it's a profession. It's not like a task
right.
that someone is doing. So
Yeah, it's that destructive mindset, right? So one of the big differences between a developer and a tester, and from my mind, is a developer likes to build things. A
a tester
tester
likes
likes
to
to
going to
destroy
break that.
things. I like to break things, right? I'm very good at breaking things. I mean,
Yes.
early on in my career, I remember talking with one of the developers. We'll give him the name Bob. His name wasn't Bob, by the way. But so I went to Bob and I said, well, if you hold down Alt and do A and print screen and then release Alt, the application blows up. And he goes, why would anybody ever do that? I don't understand. I woke up and I told him, I said, well, on the old system, if you held down Alt A and hit print screen, because it was a really old character-based system we were moving off of, it actually brought up this other menu that you could bring up so that you could go look up other data that you need to enter in here.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, why would anybody design a system like that? I go, I don't know why they designed that system like that, but they did. And so the users are going to do this, pasting in, for example, some of the big tests, destructive tests that you do is like pasting in a Cyrillic symbol or pasting in an emoji into a text field that's just not meant to handle that. What happens? That's that destructive mindset that, frankly, most developers, they're builders. They want to construct things, whereas I, as a tester at heart, I like to break things. I get challenged and I get excited and happy when I break things, whereas the developers have the opposite
No,
reaction.
this
Right?
is completely something else. But I'll add to that a developer knows his part perfectly, but he
Yep.
doesn't know what's going behind his small world. So his model is great, but when you're testing something, you need to test everything. And most developers, I don't want to be, I don't want to say all developers, but most developers don't look left and right. And in order to do good quality and to make sure that the application run as needed, you must have the overall understanding of the application.
Yep.
And it's a huge challenge to have it. So when I'm talking to an organization and I'm seeing that the QA department is being strict out, a lot of people are leaving, I'm telling them at least keep a couple that understand quality, understand QA, that at least will be able to guide the people in the right direction, or at least provide a central point of view of knowing what's going on in the quality of the application.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about challenges because we do that. But so what are some of the cutting edge solutions that have been released into the marketplace? I'm not asking you specifically about our products, although I have a huge affinity for the OpenText products. Of course I do. But what are some of the innovations that have come out recently to address those challenges?
Okay, so I think the most recent one that everybody is talking about is how AI changes automation. So how can embedded AI in order to improve or to overcome some of the challenges that I mentioned before. For example, one most common AIs that are being used is AI object detection, meaning instead of identifying, I'm talking over here about test automation, instead of identify object using the properties behind the underlying properties that we all know are changing a lot because the developers are changing whatever they want. The moment you're using AI object detection, you can actually create much more resilient test automation, which means you're reducing the maintenance that we talked about it before, because the test can last for a longer time. So I think this is one of the latest innovations that we're hearing a lot in the market today.
Well, I think before we go off of AI object detection, to be completely forthcoming. So I earned this white beard, right? I've been around for a while, as you have as well. When I first started seeing that and looking into that, was it probably almost 4 years ago now is when we started doing POC work, proof of concept work on that. I got super excited, right? To me, AI, artificial intelligent object detection, is as revolutionary for functional testing as WinRunner was for functional testing back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So prior to WinRunner, how did you do test automation, right? I don't even know. I don't even know the answer to that. How did you do test automation on Windows? You just didn't, right? You did a bunch of manual tests.
Manual tests and API tests. You didn't have UI test automation.
Yeah. So the concept of not having, when I create test automation prior to AI object detection, it takes me a lot longer than it takes a lot of other people to create a new script. The reason is that I spent a significant amount of my time in the object repository or dealing with the object properties. Sometimes I would use descriptive programming, but trying to figure out how to make this object more resilient so that I wouldn't have to come back in the future when there's a new CSS that's utilized.
Using regular expression or specific properties or stuff like. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Or multiple regular expressions on multiple properties.
And that was exactly the best practices before AI, because you want to be as resilient as possible, because if the developer tomorrow will try to change one of the properties that they didn't know that affect automation, you didn't want it to break everything. And you're absolutely right. An AI came and said, you know what? We don't care anymore. We'll do it without it. And this is exactly the point over here.
Yeah, and I think that the additional benefits that you get out of that as well, which I can't understate, right? well, I can understate. I can't overstate, I should say. So is now that I'm not beholden to those underlying object properties, I'm no longer beholden to what gets exposed either. So, and what I mean by that is when the same application gets rendered on Firefox versus Chrome versus Edge versus a mobile version of those browsers
The content
versus
becomes different.
that same object on Android or multiple flavors of Android, because a lot of vendors out there have their own flavor of Android that they layer on top of Android or iOS. I don't care anymore, right? It's a login button. How do I know it's a button? Well, it looks like a button, has the visual characteristics of a button, and it has the attached text on it of login or sign in or whatever, right? And layering in there, what I affectionately call analogous words engine. I know that's not what it's officially called, but I like the word analogous, so I try to use it whenever possible. The analogous word engine of it says login or log space in or sign in or sign space in or whatever other synonymous word that we throw on top of there, it doesn't care. And it has not only has it reduced my maintenance of scripts, but it's reduced the time it takes me to create scripts too, because I don't even go look at what the object properties anymore.
Yeah.
Right. I cannot overstate how incredible and revolutionary that is. So I didn't mean to steal your thunder on there,
No,
but I'm super
absolutely.
excited about.
I wanted to shift to the next topic, but yes, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. So it takes the burden of creation and maintainability to a completely different level,
Yep.
which let you actually, as a QA or automation engineer, focus on the most important thing of what am I testing and what's the right flow to test. And actually, this is the second point that I want to mention over here. The next things that we're seeing a lot in the market today is model-based testing. Now, MBT is one way of, or one methodology of creating tests, but behind it is to make sure that you're covering the right aspect of the application, to connect the testing, the test automation to the business. And with model-based testing, you can make sure that your test automation covers the right business flow. And by covering the right business flow, you're creating an interface with your business analyst or subject matter expert, SMEs, to make sure that you're talking in the same language. Because they will not get into the code and say, okay, you're using the wrong property. This will not happen. But if we show you, this is the flow that we are covering, is it the right one? Are you using the right data? Are you covering the right aspect? This is a conversation that you can have with your business people to make sure that you're validating the right thing in the right priority.
Yeah. So building that picture is worth 1,000 words too, right? This applies here, right? So building that model, being able to show that and all the branches that can occur within there.
Yeah.
I think another big part of that as well is, and what gets me excited about model-based testing is being able to then trace it back as well, right?
Yeah.
So I can trace that back to my user stories, right? So this unit or a component or whatever you want to call it, that is, and I'll use login again because everybody understands login. This login component ties back to these 7 or 8 user stories. Well, now when the developer starts editing that user story, I now know where in my testing I need to do. And that leads us into, okay, so how do I make sure that I test? And because you talked about it earlier, I don't have enough time to test everything. What do I test?
Absolutely. And this goes exactly with what you have been called intelligent strategies, which is we don't have time to create all the tests that we want. And even if we have the time, we don't have time to execute everything that we want. We need to take smart decision over here. And with these connections that you just mentioned, this is one example to make sure that we are validating the right aspect of the application at the right time. So if, I'll continue your example, if a user story changes because the developer checked in a code that affects a specific user story, which affects a specific component, I know that in the next build I need to execute this test because they are connected. And if a specific area, nobody touched it from a code perspective, I can run it if I want, but the priority is much, much lower because nothing changed over there.
Yep.
And with the intelligent strategies, I can take smarter decision and decide where I want to spend my time or to spend the execution time, which helped me take advantage of the system. And we talked in the beginning, one of the challenges is fast delivery. We don't have time to execute everything every day. So we need to be very, very intelligent which test we're executing. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the market today.
So you brought up also shift left earlier, right? You talk about shift left. So I like to talk about the concept of shift everywhere. So shift left and shift right. But there's also another aspect of that, which I stole from someone else, and I'd give credit to him if I could remember his name, which I can't off the top of my head. But he coined the term of shifting up as well, which to me is shifting that information to the management layer, right? So and the senior management layer. So knowing what data needs to filter up from the work that's being done in automation is absolutely crucial. Shift right being, the less technical people, closer to the true end user and the business running it. So that shift everywhere being in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just mentioning the shift right that you just talked about, a very strong buzzword that is running in the industry in the last year or so is codeless. And the ability to create automation without any code in NLP, natural language process. And by using the AI technologies that we mentioned before, we can actually do it today. So people without any technical skills can actually create automation in pure English using the AI object detection and can create full automation without knowing how to script, which is amazing. We couldn't even imagine it like 5 years ago. And now actually it's happening, and we're seeing it happening in the market.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I played around with, which excited me about using NLP, natural language processing, combined with AI object detection, was I wrote a component, in the concept of model-based testing. I wrote a component that did product search, and then I ran that same product search script that was, is data driven, and it was two statements, right? It was search for value, verify value exists, right? So that was my component in plain English, right? And that value was a parameter that I passed in, and I ran the same test against multiple e-commerce sites. So around me, I ran it against Meijer.com, Target.com, BestBuy.com, AmericanEagle.com. And it just worked against, and they didn't all use the same development framework or the same development tools, right? Which is just it's super exciting to get that layer to get to that level of abstraction.
Yeah, we're talking about again. I think in a few minutes you'll ask me what's the future, what's the future challenge, and I'll point back to this point in a minute. But yes.
Yeah. So that's exciting. So what does that lead us to today? So, we talked about where we are today, some of the cutting edge stuff that we have going on today in the industry. What's on the short term roadmap, right? What are we seeing? Where are we going to be in 6 months? What are some of the innovations that you think are gonna happen in the next 6 months?
So in the near future, I think there are not going to be great groundbreaking technology coming up in the next 6 months, but we need to start seeing how we can do or work smarter with what we have today. How can we execute smarter? How can we create scripts smarter? How can we collaborate smarter with our peers, if it's the developers, if it's the business analyst, if it's whomever using the customer? So we need to find how we can take advantage of all the technologies that we just talked about and elevate our work to be much more productive in the system.
And I think you're talking too about adoption, right? How do we get these solutions and these capabilities are out there in the market. Obviously they're in the OpenText products as well. Some of our competitors have some or partial capabilities for this as well. But how do we increase that adoption in the marketplace so that people can start to leverage that so that we can find out where we go after that? So, which leads me to, so what are some of the secrets that the innovative secret things that R&D labs are starting to look at? What are some of the exciting things that you think in the longer term future, greater than 6 months, say 6 months to 2 years, will come into the market?
So there's a lot coming on, and I think what happened in the last couple of months, AI or GPT in specific changed the way we are looking at stuff. Okay, so I guess that almost everyone knows about ChatGPT, but this is just one example, and it completely changed the way we can work. We already internally started to think how we can use this kind of technology to create to be smarter while creating automation or in quality in general. So this is one thing that we're already starting to look at and provide a lot of value to our customers. For example, using ChatGPT or GPT technology in general, not specifically the ChatGPT interface, we can actually better create tests. We can do it easier, and we can help customer do it faster, and to suggest a lot of easier starts that doesn't exist today. And this is something that we're already today investing a lot because we want to help our customer to be more productive. And this is one thing that we're doing, and I'm sure it will accelerate automation creation because you can take manual tests and using the AI object detections that we talked about and the NLP codeless that we talked about, maybe we can use the GPT technology to take any manual test and create automation out of it. So there are many, many things that we can do. And we need to make sure that we are doing it smart because we don't want to create wrong solutions over here. And this is something that is very scary. I'm also, as you mentioned, I'm a QA guy in heart. This is my first job. And creating something that doesn't work, it's an issue. So I prefer taking it slowly. And for example, I'm sure you played with ChatGPT, and when you ask him question,
that's an interesting distinction there. Him versus it, right? Is it ChatGPT, Bard, or whatever the AI chat bot that you're utilizing, it responds so well. It feels like it's a person, right? It's a him or it's a her or they. It's not a it anymore, and that's
But the issue with that, sometimes I've asked it a few questions and it answered wrongly because it happened, which is, we know that, but it answered with so certainty that I thought, whoa, maybe it's right. But I checked, it was wrong. So, and it's nice in ChatGPT, but if we add it to our enterprise level solution, we cannot provide wrong solutions.
Right.
So we need to find the right way to connect it and to suggest the right solution for our customers. I'm sure it's coming soon, and I'm sure it will dramatically improve the way we're doing quality or automation. But we need to be very I don't know if careful is the right word, but take it step by step to make sure we are doing it correctly.
Well, I think when you talk about being careful, there's also the nefarious that we have to worry about too, right? So I was chatting with GPT the other day, and I asked it a question about our products, right? So I asked it, what's the difference between QTP and UFT? And it gave a fair answer. It was mostly correct. And I said, well, in addition to this, there's this other thing too. And it goes, oh yeah, you're right. And I said, well, and so I started thinking, well, what if what if I feed it misinformation, right? So, that's a big thing in the market, right? That we hear about in the news,
So
misinformation.
specifically about ChatGPT, it doesn't learn. So the ChatGPT are actually the data is from 2021. It's not new one. So even if you're teaching something new, it's relevant for your thread, but all
Right.
other threads it's not. But with the upcoming release of BERT from Google, it's a live system. It learns. It should
Yeah.
learn. This is what I read up until now. I didn't see it yet.
Yeah.
So over there, it's very scary because
Yeah.
it might actually affect the answers. This is some of the concerns that we have with GPT in the market in general. But this is why I think going back to our business, we need to know how to use it correctly and to take advantages of it correctly and not just to add it, now we can easily create everything from scratch. No, it's not the case. We need to do it smarter.
So you talked about, so we naturally transitioned into what my next question that I wanted to ask you about is challenges that we're going to see in the future. What challenges do we need to address? So one of them obviously is, how do we ensure that the AI chat capabilities that get infused into test automation and the broader technology stack in general is accurate information that's in there. But what other challenges do you think the future is going to introduce that we need to address as well?
So first thing, the challenge that you mentioned right now is a big one because who is testing the AI? Okay, now Chat GPT is not our AI. We're a consumer of this technology. But if you are building your own AI, and a lot of organizations are doing it today, who is testing it? Are you using AI to test AI? So our human are not involved at all. It's scary. We need to know how we are doing it correctly. So we need to define this and where are the control points to make sure that we're not missing anything. Because if the AI, which is testing the AI, is also wrong, there's no validation over here. So this is one challenge that we need to understand how we're tackling. And from another direction, putting AI aside for a minute, there is the whole VR, AR aspect that maybe in the last 6 months faded a bit, but I'm sure it's coming back. I'm sure it will come back. Maybe it will take 2 years. I don't know. But how you're testing AR, how you're testing VR, who is testing it? Is it being done only manually because you need to put your helmets on and test it? How you're testing it automatically? There's a lot of aspects over here that we need to understand how we are connecting our two-dimension testing to this new reality. And this is something that we need to see. Now, for gaming companies, I'm sure that they have methods to do that, but AR for sure is going to come to the enterprise. And VR, also I think it will come, but it will take a bit more time. But AR is already in. We are seeing it. How you're testing it, how you're validating that it works. Can you automate the process and not just the API, just really the process? Those are challenges that we need to understand how we're tackling.
Yeah, from an AR perspective, so one of the companies that I worked at, we were already experimenting with AR capabilities with the glasses, right? If you remember Glass, right? Google
Yes.
Glass. We were looking at that from a pharmacist perspective. So pharmacist has to dispense medications, right? And they're supposed to dispense 100 pills, right? So using an AR to count the pills that are on the table and make sure that to double check what the pharmacist dispensed, or vice versa, having it draw a line on the screen for you so that on the table for you for where to move the medications over so that you have the right numbers. How do you make sure that so that's a very simple implementation of AR, but I get concerned too about things like AR. I'm a huge fan of Waze in my personal life. I use Waze all the time. There's a lot of talk about people who are so blinded by their GPS that they drive their car into a lake or something like that because it's incorrect. Well, if you take that and you expand upon that to an AR perspective, where instead of it being on a screen that's down over onto the side, that it's visually in front of you and overlaid on top of the real world. What if the AR portion doesn't have the right opacity, right? What if it's taken over what you're doing, so that if that GPS were wrong, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to see that you're about to walk off a cliff, right?
You're talking about,
Right?
GPS. I read an article last month that doctors are using AR for surgery to better know what's going inside the body. Imagine that being pointed to the wrong vein.
An
It's
artery
even
instead of a vein, right?
whatever. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure those AR glasses were tested. The question is how, and how do you automate it, and how do you, and again, now it's a preview or beta, call it whatever you want. The moment it's becoming mainstream, you need to be much more resilient of the way you're doing it. Currently, I don't know how to do that, but it's something that will come to our table very, very soon.
Right. So how does that impact us as people, right? So this future and these challenges that we need to address, and how's that going to impact the people? So the people aspect of this. So one of the questions I always get, right? How does this impact humans? Is AI going to replace me? So I talk to a lot of people who do test automation, right? I spend a lot of time talking with people in test automation. Is NLP and AI object detection and layered on with model-based, do I need to look for a new job, a new career?
You specific, I think yes, but in general, I think no. But no, just kidding. But so
Me specifically, yes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think it will change the way we work. I think it will make our lives much more interesting, and I think it will not do exactly the same. We'll need to learn how to work with it, to take advantages of it in order to improve our work. As I mentioned in the beginning, the world is moving much faster. With the environment, challenge is endless. With AI or whatever, any new technology, we need to learn and adopt it and not be afraid of it in order to improve the way we are working. QA is not going away. The way you're doing QA changes, but you need to adapt, but it's not going away.
Yeah, I think you think about where we were from an environment perspective, from a scripting perspective, from executing test perspective 20 years ago to today.
Yeah.
Right? 20 years ago, I had big monolithic environments. Now, a lot of times I have containers. I can spin up my environment the way I want. I can commit that container at the end of the test so that I can go back to how it was. I can, I have automated tests. I can record things that I do. Even if I'm doing it manually, I can record my manual event so I can replay it. Whereas before it was, I have to remember, okay, so what sequence of events did I go through in order to get to this failure? Because I do a lot of destructive testing, right? That was the big value I had is destructive testing. Well, now how do I do that? Well, now there's ways to capture that. So I think you're absolutely correct in that we have to, as humans, we have to adapt and adopt, right? Adopt what's the technology that's coming out there, not be afraid of it, and adapt what we do, and leverage the intuition and the capabilities that we have in the amazing human mind that we have to be able to be productive and value add on top of whatever that new technology is. Heavily, it's going to be AI. I don't think anybody is going to argue that AI is going to heavily influence our world, but we don't know what the next huge technology leap is going to be as well, which brings me to really the last question I have. If you were to I'm going to make myself, I'm going to date myself. If you're going to be like Karnak from the Johnny Carson show, right? Karnak says, and you hold up, where do you think we'll be in 5 years? What do you envision? What's something that Eyal thinks this definitely in 5 years will be something that's in there, or is it too cloudy?
I think the pace the industry is changing now. 5 years is eternity. nobody thought about GPT like 4 months ago. It completely changed everything.
Right.
I think in general, AI will completely change the way we are working. Okay, and just one comment that what you said before. There's no matter which QA tester you'll ask in the world, manual, automated, whatever, the first thing that they will say, we don't have enough time to do whatever we need to do. The first thing, okay? This is exactly where AI should come in. It should help you work smarter and be able to do more things. Now, looking 5 years ahead, AI will change the way you are working. Your day-to-day that is you're doing today will not be the same. In order to be relevant, you need to be on top of it. You need to lead the AI change in your organization in order to be relevant and in order to keep and evolve with the industry. I think AI will completely change us. Who knows? Maybe VR. Maybe the next time we do this podcast, we'll be inside metaverse, and this will completely change everything again. Maybe some company, without naming any one of them, will finally succeed doing a really good VR, and from that day forward, we'll not have these kinds of meeting anymore, and it will always also change everything.
Right.
But I think in this area, this is something that I expect to completely change the way we're working.
Well, that's awesome. I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I look forward to what the future of testing actually brings. Right, there's been huge changes and revolutionary changes that have happened recently in the testing industry, and I look forward to what comes out. So for everybody here from Application Development Today, our next session is going to be Ensuring Assurance of SAP. Look forward to that coming out on our bi-weekly cadence. And thanks for taking the time to listen today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
If you like the video, please click the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we release new videos.